Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tea with TPS. Today, our distinguished guest is Mr. Xavier Vinson Palathingal. He's a very successful IT entrepreneur in Washington. He is a conservative political activist. He's an Indian community leader and education enthusiast. Last week, we had a program on educational opportunities for Indians in Australia with a legal advisor of one of the companies there. So, continuing on that trend, Mr. Vinson has agreed to speak to us about education opportunities in the United States. These have been shifting and moving in the last few years because of the various immigration rules. And I'm sure he'll be able to enlighten us on that subject. Welcome, Vinson. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ambassador, for having me. Really appreciate this opportunity.
Well, you have been on my Videsha Vicharam program several times as you moved from one political position to another. And you had always been very kind to brief us on, particularly on the Republican aspect of American political life. So today, before we go on to a discussion on education, may I ask you to tell us briefly the situation in the US after President Trump has disappeared from the scene, almost disappeared from the scene, and President Biden has taken charge. But you still have a sense that President Trump is somewhere around and he is likely to come back or at least make an effort. So, but what is the state of President Trump himself as well as the Republican Party now?
Absolutely. So, as you know, this is not a regular transition that happened last year. Normally, when U.S. presidents, either they're done with their terms or they lose the election in the first term, they go and the new president takes over, and then we don't hear from them because they wanted to give more space to the new president. But now, since this was not normal, this was not usual, what happened? A lot of people in the country, that is 74 million people who voted for Trump, and a huge 85% of them still believe that the election was stolen. And that feeling is definitely what is reflected in the general demeanor of the people, that a lot of people have not really accepted Biden as the president. Of course, theoretically, he is the president, but people don't have their blessings for his presidency. And President Trump has been definitely silenced by the social media, by Facebook and Twitter and social media outlets like that. So he's now trying to figure out, from what we can see, how to communicate with the people. So he never had a rally after that. Of course, I have attended many of his rallies, as you know. This is
one of them is very famous, that you carried the Indian flag to the rally.
Yes, absolutely. We really miss those rallies, and there is going to be another. There is going to be a rally. I don't know about the magnitude of it, but there is going to be a speech from President Trump next week in North Carolina. I think that is what is going to be a place where he's going to announce his maybe some future plans, or maybe some indicators what he is exactly planning to do.
Yes, Vincent, what is surprising is that the Republicans are still backing them, majority of them. And that is a surprise, because even after the change, they are not trying to get the Trump out of their system. That is something very, very notable. So obviously they still have faith in him. Is that what you think?
It is not just about that individual Trump. People were really frustrated. Conservative people were really frustrated, starting from George Bush, went into an unnecessary war, fighting a war based on lies, weapons of mass destruction, all of that. That really was disheartening to a lot of real good conservative people in America. So they were looking for somebody to carry their agenda, their mantle in the political system. And that's when they found Trump. Of course, President Trump comes with a lot of liabilities, the way he talks, the way he speaks, all of that. But at the same time, there is a lot of messages that he spreads and he supports that are very dear to the conservative people in the country. who are basically common sense, general population who really wanted to go do their regular things in life and have a good, happy life. And that is what is, there is nobody else has emerged from anywhere who can, replace that leader who needs to be courageous. Republicans are generally are very politically correct people, so they cannot tell all the truths like President Trump says. So they still only see him, and that is why that is not dying out, as you can see, and it is not going to die out, and you will see it soon.
Well, I saw a statement by former Vice President Pence the other day. He still feels very strongly that what he did was right, and he is the one who saved American democracy. There are many people who believe in that. But anyway, these are all past, at least for the Biden administration. It is a new game. And they're in fact following President Trump on a couple of things. Of course, several things they have leaked on whatever he had done. But on the question of China, at least, President Biden said at least a couple of times that he was going to follow the policy of President Trump, which is being very tough to the Chinese. But he has made slight changes. He has said that China is a competitor, not an adversary. But let us look at Biden's India policy. Do you find anything hopeful for India, even though you are a conservative?
Absolutely not. I mean, Democrats always have their agenda. They believe in globalism. They don't want India to become a powerhouse there, which they have to handle. They wanted to make sure that India they consider on par with Pakistan, and that has been their agenda. And now it has changed. Times have changed. With George Bush and Obama was not able to change any of that because he was actually, in my opinion, he was not against India's rise, but at the same time, the old school Democrat establishment who believes in the old Civil War, Cold War type mindset, they were still focused on considering India on par with Pakistan because it's convenient for them. They were not really giving any credit for India's democratic
But
government.
President Clinton had changed that. He had de-hyphenated the two countries. He made separate. The policies were separated by him. And Bush continued. He did not give a nuclear deal to Pakistan. So those days
Not
are
really.
over.
Clinton didn't really try. If you look at his 99 visit to India, he wanted to still go to Pakistan, even though he just sat in the airport and spoke to the people.
Yes, he did
A lot
for 5
of
hours.
advice.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so it was just, he was just still believing in that symbolism because all these secret agencies told him it is dangerous to get out in Pakistan. But he still wanted to go and he sat in the airport on the Pakistani soil. He would have done that from White House. So Clinton didn't really change it. Clinton was definitely an okay president when it comes to Indo-American policy. But when I say the hardcore liberal Democrat, I'm talking about the Washington, D.C., New York type, the swampy people
Yes,
who have an agenda.
Washington Post crowd. They are not.
Exactly.
But
So
they are
that crowd was
they are
always
the ones who influence the administration most on these aspects.
exactly, and that those people needs to be challenged, and that needs courage, and that is where President Trump type of person who is coming and telling, I don't find any reason to be for us to be fighting with this country, which is a kind of a sister country, democracy, freedom, all of that is there. Why we are in fight with India all the time? Why we have to be kind of considering India on par with Pakistan or China? And he understood the danger of China even 30 years before any of this happened. When people were thinking China is fine, they're going to change, they're going to become a democracy. That was the Democrat talking point all the time. But Trump said that's not the case. So Trump had that vision, and Trump had never shifted from that vision that China cannot be trusted because of their communist regime. It's nothing about Chinese people. Chinese people are just like any other people, good people. Indian people, American people are good people. They become whatever that system makes them. So China is a very secretive, very authoritarian state, and Trump knew that we should not support China with our intellectual property and with our money. And finally, they're going to become an adversary. So
yes, Pompeo kept saying, I am against the Communist Party of China, not against the people of China.
That is his messaging.
They don't represent the people. No, but anyway, that's all seems to have changed in Biden's own approach to China. He is going to be very tough, but he also realizes that he needs China. And as far as India is concerned, now that the Quad has been activated, there is a certain automaticity of our working together on China. At least on that, there is no doubt. But unfortunately, Biden, faltered on the question of vaccines. It was pretty unfortunate that he did not even respond for the first 3 4 days when the whole world was saying, "Look, India is collapsing. Do something." But then he started talking about the needs of the United States, etc. Anyway, but now there is good news. He has agreed to even waive the, intellectual property rights and patents, etc. And he has also, after the visit of Dr. Jaishankar to Washington, there have been announcements. Vice President spoke to Mr. Modi and assured him that there will be vaccine supplies, of course, as part of the global position that they are taking. So things are looking better. But there are so many things in which we are involved with the US, Afghanistan, Russia, climate change, all these issues on which we need to work together. And that has not yet emerged as a clear signal. That's what I'd see. But anyway, the advantage is that we have at least a predictable president. You may not agree with it, but we have always found President Trump
No,
to be
he's
rather
definitely
unpredictable.
predictable because he is definitely predictable because he doesn't have any of his thoughts at all. He's just following that junta, whatever whoever tells him, and that's why he takes the time. As you can see, he doesn't have a reflex reaction to whatever he hear because he has to consult with his experts on what to respond, how to respond. So
Well,
he's
the State
definitely going to be
Department is
predictable.
happy. Somebody is listening to him, to them. The State Department, because Trump never even went to the State Department, apparently. But Biden went there and he talked to them and said, "You are in charge of foreign policy," etc. Anyway, so as far as India is concerned, we are trying to build relationship with him. But how about the Indian community? Those who supported Trump continue to support him.
Absolutely. A lot of people believe that there was no need for him to keep fighting, but then they start correcting themselves because if he never kept fighting, all these election irregularities and all the new changes that are coming to fix the irregularities would have never happened. And that is exactly my purpose. When I went to the Capitol, when I supported him, I never thought that the election is going to be reversed, but I wanted the entire world to listen what exactly is going on here and how easy for somebody to defraud the elections in America because of the system that is based on trust. So that is the mission that has been accomplished. Definitely, there is a lot of talk. Georgia has already passed a law. Many states are moving in the direction. Audits are happening. All of that was because of him reacting the way he reacted, that not
So some
accepting the
reforms are
results.
taking place because US elections have so many peculiarities that I think a reform would be very helpful. As you know, it's so complicated. Even counting is not so easy. So we always take
Absolutely.
pride in the fact that we can count 1.3 million or billion, and Americans cannot even count 250 million. So anyway,
See,
but
it's not a question of counting. It is based on the state's rights that we have. Election is a state responsibility. So, and the state rules, state legislatures decide what has to happen from the state. There is no even a presidential election. There is no real federal
but that
body
is
that
not
runs the
logical,
party.
isn't it? When you have a whole country voting, different rules, different regulations, different ballot papers, all these create complications. They could make it
It is
uniform.
not really because it's as if you can see, it's the United States of America. It's not America. It's United States of America. So even the states
No,
have
no,
the
I
right
know the
to.
difference. I know the difference between India and America. Yeah,
No, so that
but
federal
but
nature has
still,
to be
I think
preserved.
at least for the presidential and vice presidential elections, probably they could have a uniform, system. Anyway, that's not in our hands. But generally, the immigration situation has improved, hasn't it? As far as India
You
is
mean
concerned.
after the see, Biden is making these executive orders or whatever statement that he makes, but that really doesn't have any meaning. Have you ever heard from a lot of people telling that they were hurt because of any of Trump's policies? Trump has definitely come with guidelines to make system work better, and a lot of people I have heard that their processes proceeded according to the facts of the case instead of just waiting in a line without really understanding what exactly is going on. He's a businessman. He was looking for solutions. This administrations, Biden's, I mean, Democrat as well as Republican, for so many years, they were not able to solve the the limbo that Indian Americans are in. About 350,000 Indian Americans are waiting after all their processes are over for their green card. Democrat
No, but
senators.
today I saw a report. I saw a report saying that green cards are being expedited.
No, it's not. That's not. That is not the procedural declarations that they make for Indians to start getting the green cards that they deserve and they're waiting for 15 and 20 years. We have to have that rule changed, the countrywide quota and all of that. It has to be a law. Nobody can change it overnight. And that law was stalled in the Senate because of Dick Durbin, a Democrat. So everything that you hear in the media that Democrats changed immigration easy and Indians are happy, that's all just hogwash. If I wanted to, because it's not because I'm a Republican. I'm here on the ground. Let me hear from people saying that one of those guidelines helped anybody other than just talk. So bottom line is nothing has really changed. No laws has been passed. All the laws during the time of Trump, before Trump, now they're all the same. Of course, COVID has put a lot of changes, in terms of how we can execute the law when it comes to visa stamping and all of that. That things have changed in the last 1 year, 1.5 years, but nothing like real law has, real change anywhere else.
Well, that was the next question I wanted to ask you. The COVID situation in the US. Now we get the impression that everything is back to normal. You don't have to wear a mask. You have to follow certain guidelines, but not necessarily very strict. And so, do you feel somewhat liberated or relieved that this is over? Is that the feeling you get?
I don't know whether it is over. I don't know. Even Dr. Fauci has no clue what exactly he's talking about. So how do I know whether it is over? Because I'm always worried. We have a lot of people traveling from India. So if that new strain of virus comes in, we don't know. It's going to be again the same thing, whether we are prepared, whether these vaccines we took are going to be any useful. So we don't know any of that. But as far as I can tell, I have been very free. I mean, I've been to many rallies after even the COVID came. I have used my precautions, of course, and my natural remedies that I'm definitely very thankful to the Indian system where I learned those from. How to keep your bronchial system clean when there is some things like this going on. I'm not saying anything that this is completely foolproof, but at the same time, I was visiting Florida last November, just after the elections. I felt a lot of freedom. All the schools were open there, no mask requirement. And I have some business in Florida, some real estate business in Florida. And I can tell you, if the mask requirements that I have in Maryland and Virginia, where I live, was in Florida, we may be going into a foreclosure now. But instead of that, our occupancy rates increased because a lot of new people were moving into Florida. So freedom is important for the economy to keep moving. I mean, people can make their decisions whether they want to come out or not based on their specific health situations. But very healthy, young, youthful people all being barred from going out and staying inside, that's not the method that I think is the right method to handle this kind of situation. So I'm definitely happy that things are relaxing with the vaccine. And I'm definitely thankful to President Trump for being so aggressive in coming up with that vaccine when Biden and Democrats and Fauci and everybody said it's impossible to come up with a vaccine in 1 year. It was his pressure with FDA in relaxing the time frames to get these vaccines approved and produced in 1 year. That is what has given the hope. So people have to give credit where it is due. I believe that. And I would do that if a Democrat does that. So what I'm saying is, thanks to vaccines, thanks to all of this, now we look like we have hope, but we still don't know whether any new strains will show up and destroy this
There's
peace.
no certainty about any of these. We have no idea. Many things that we did may eventually be found unnecessary or ineffective. All this can happen. As you said, Mr. Fauci himself is not able to say with any finality, or any other scientist has been not
Exactly.
able to say that. Anyway, to come to our discussion, there are two factors we have to take into account. One is the education system has changed world over. Of course, online education was very fashionable in America. The MOOC system was very effective, established by a Bangladeshi mathematician. And the thousands and millions of people were using that. I tried to propagate it in here, but nobody took it. Everybody said, oh, no, we want teachers to teach. But now we have been thrown into the water. Now everybody says, in 2011, when I said, let us shift to online education, at least partly. Of course, they threw stones at me. So, so from there now, the government is struggling to set up online system in Wayanada and where there is no internet. But if we had started in 2011, we would have been very well on our way to the system. Anyway, but that is something which we did not do. But America had done that in a big way. And therefore, it is quite possible that travel from abroad may not be very essential for study. They may say that, you can take a Harvard degree sitting in Trivandrum. And that is possible even now, but that may become the new norm. That is one aspect, which will discourage people from doing American degrees. Because one of the reasons why people go to United States to study is to also find a job and also settle or become a migrant or at least a green card holder. And that is how most Indians have gone there. Education was one of the factors, but that education was meant to give you a hold in that country. And that is what all of us, including my son, has done. So, and that will change because they say if I am not going there, why should I be taking a degree from the United States, which is expensive? Why not I do German course or why do I do something in Canada, etc.? Has that happened? Number one. And secondly, if because the Republicans and the Democrats are supposed to have the same kind of ideas about migration when it comes to foreigners coming to their country. One is slightly soft, the other is hard, but basically, Americans generally are not very comfortable with too many foreigners coming into the US. And that's also a new trend. So, taken to these 2 points into account, how do you see Indians going to the United States for studies?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So, when you talk about working from home and study from home, definitely America had the infrastructure, but even in America, that was not has matured to the levels that it was potentially capable of because of this general aversion to people. I still remember when I was working for Metro Washington Council of Governments in 1996-97 timeframe, we pushed for work from home in generally, but none of the local governments, none of the local companies were ready to take that as a serious thing because people were thinking that people, when they work from home, they're not going to be serious about it. But COVID really pushed that. And now they have found that the productivity has increased when people work from home. So my wife, for example, she's working from home throughout the pandemic and nothing has changed. And actually productivity has increased. My neighbors, all of them tell, they have been having excellent results. So definitely things have changed with COVID in general perception. And when I talk about the degrees, I would say that some kind of a correction was necessary. These universities were really exploiting the situation where American students will get loans at reduced interests, and the government will guarantee those loans. And the university fees were going up because of that by artificially created money supply. So all of that, this was a time for a change. And I was actually thinking for a long time, why kids have to go to college when all of that is available online? I have actually told my son when he graduated from high school, I will give you money to, if you have some kind of an invention or something that you wanted to make, I will support you. You don't have to go to college. But he definitely wanted to have that 4-year enjoyment, and he went. And that's exactly what it does.
Which is really very worthwhile. The university campus life in the US. I always was envious of those students, the kind of experience they get.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. And the campus life, it's very important. Even in India, I definitely believe when I went to Thrissur Engineering College, yes, we learned a lot of engineering, a lot of bridge designs and all of that. But none of that really I'm using it. But the confidence that I gained hanging out with friends and, having that campus life and kind of being who you are without having your parents' support, that is what makes you who you are in the future. So definitely a campus life is important. But when it comes to the Indian Americans, just like you said about your son, that's exactly true about me also. I wanted to go have better fortunes. I was working for Kidco in India. That time I went to Saudi Arabia and I didn't like it because of the freedom issues. I had money, but then I looked at the next option, and that's how I came here as a student in 1992. And 6 of my family members, my nephews and nieces, followed me. They all took engineering degrees, computer science degrees from, bachelors from India, and they came here for masters. Most of them, I can tell you, just like you said, they didn't come here for just masters. They came here to have a life here. So if that life is not going to be here anymore, definitely things are going to change. And the immigration friendly talk that you hear from Biden, that is going to be mostly for illegal immigrants. He doesn't believe in borders and people are coming in, and Democrat Party always wanted to keep illegal and legal immigration together so that they can continue to pander to the illegal immigrants. But what I am seeing right now, there is no real policy change when it comes to immigration other than open borders if you're ready to come illegal. And no Indian American who come here for study is coming here illegally. They come here legally. Maybe some of them will go to an illegal situation because of some time limits or whatever. But most of them, for the most part, are legal immigrants. So when they come, and if the American economy is not doing well, if the American economy is not really an attraction, it's definitely going to change. But at the same time, I see there is a difference in the system where Indian students can definitely benefit the way if they teach things like the way they teach in America, especially after the primary level. See, I am playing this. It's not kind of a devil's advocate thing, but I'm really talking from my facts. Raising two children, and they both graduated with computer science degrees from University of Virginia and having excellent jobs. So I will tell you one thing: when we have kids in the elementary level and mid school level, the Indian system works beautifully because they have been trained to give them very good foundation in arithmetic, in English, and then they're ready to take on bigger challenges. So that system is lacking in America. An American system, the primary education is not really very rigorous, and that is why you don't have a lot of kids here who like math, who like engineering, who like technology, who like science, who like medicine. So when
they are in a hurry to get onto a job. That is the tendency, no? At least go as a waiter in
the jobs are in and
plenty.
jobs are in plenty. There are plenty of jobs with minimal training in IT, and I have done that, like training people with other degrees, with arts degrees, with history, commerce degrees in technology, special disciplines, and them changing their salary structure from whatever they have right now to twice, three times, just because of some IT training they got. I have done that personally. So we can change things in that direction, and online can definitely be a big asset in doing that. People don't need these 4-year degrees in computer science and technology to do certain jobs. As far as they are reasonably intelligent and they're logically aligned, they can do these jobs. So that is a good thing that has to happen, and that will happen with this online becoming more and more prominent these days. But when it comes to Indian students, if they wanted to have some real serious research, if they wanted to have definitely pushing the limits of their capability, I know the Indian system, that's why I'm telling. They definitely have an option here in American universities for higher education. I wouldn't even tell them to go for undergrad, because undergrad is definitely something that requires more rigor, and Indian system is not really lacking it. But when it comes to independent thinking, innovation, that's where you have an opportunity here if you come here for masters and PhDs, and that is what I strongly recommend. And 1/3 of all Indian students are actually coming here for masters or higher degrees. Actually, more than 1/3. I have some statistics here. Yeah, I mean, total 1/3 is coming here for masters. 1/3 comes here for bachelors, and 12.5% comes here for doctorate, and only 7.5% comes here for anything less than a bachelor's degree. So that trend, I think it is good for America. It is good for India. We do not have enough students who take these master's programs and PhD programs seriously, which is what creates the technological rigor and technological status that America has right now. And that is definitely helpful for America when Indian students and Chinese students with very strong fundamental technology background comes here. And it is actually helping India also and China also, because they take this talent and they start companies. So that is why that technology divide has disappeared in the last 20 years. And that is because of these American students, whether they are of Chinese origin or Indian origin. And when I say Chinese and Indian, I say that because more than 50% of all international students come from these countries, these two countries. And that has definitely
more
made
from China than from India, right? More from China than in India.
More from China, definitely.
More Chinese students.
There are more Chinese students, and because they come here more for bachelor's degree also. Indians are coming mostly for graduate studies, and we have a saying here. We have general understanding that Indians are very money minded. So bachelor's degree, most of the time when they come, they don't get assistantships or any funding, so they have to pay from their pocket.
Expensive. Yeah, it becomes expensive.
Yeah, when you come for masters, you don't spend much. And I came here, I haven't spent anything really. I got assistantship from the university, and my nephews and nieces, most of them spend nothing. They got full assistantships from colleges, so they didn't spend.
And PhD is totally free, isn't it? PhD is totally
when you get
free.
Assistantship, it depends on the assistantship you get. That is one of the things that you have to worry when you pick the university, where there is a lot of money in research and in particular disciplines that they wanted to pursue their studies. So they should make sure that they are coming into those universities where there are opportunities. So I went to University of Nevada, Reno, not a big school, but a state school, a very good state school. So I went there, I got assistantship, and my nephews and nieces who came from India, they all came to the same school because I know about the goodness of the school in terms of great research that's going on. So they all got funding. So that way you have to do your research and come to the best schools where we can get our master's or PhD done without spending anything from our pocket, and definitely learning a new culture and new way of learning.
No, but going for undergraduate degrees, is it practical now? Can somebody just apply for an undergraduate degree in any university and get admission and then visa?
Absolutely.
Is that easy?
Absolutely. The question is fees. When it comes to undergraduate, it's a lot of expense. So the expenses are anywhere from $25,000 to $30,000 per year to $60,000 to $70,000 to $80,000 per year if you go to MIT, Harvard, and places like that. So expense is the main constraint for anybody to try in undergrad. Otherwise,
scholarships at the undergraduate level is not easy.
It's very, very limited. Scholarships are very limited. You have to compete with most of the time American students and other international students, and there is no real work involved. You can do work study, but you cannot rely on work study when you come here as a student. You're definitely telling that you have enough resources to support your studies. Most of the undergrad students come from very rich countries, and China, of course. There are a lot of rich people in China these days.
The government sponsors their students. So
government definitely sponsors because
individuals are not paying for it. Yeah. So they plan it and get the right children for the right jobs, etc. It's a nationally planned system. Ours is everybody is on his own.
When you plan everything, Chinese government definitely have that interest in learning from Americans and taking the intellectual property. So they definitely have to sponsor students to make sure that they listen to the Chinese government. And that's what they listen. That's why they continue to listen. So it's not all good, but government sponsoring.
There is no politics. Whatever may be the relationship with the US, the Chinese will keep on sending the Chinese to the US, don't you think?
No, absolutely they will, because the American technology, American exposure is definitely very key for China. It was critical for China some years ago. It is still key for China. So that's why they will continue to do that. And I think Indian students also should come in bigger numbers so that we have that edge when it comes to China in terms of technology and exposure. And just for that reason, I wouldn't discourage Indian students from coming, because it has to keep on moving, because China is our competition. I mean, of course, America provides the opportunity, but China is in our neighborhood. So we definitely have to have that manpower. We definitely have to have the trained workforce and people with exposure, international exposure, to make sure that we are on par with China to compete in any fields. So that is why it is so important.
But one difference may be that the Chinese, almost all of them go back to China. They don't take up jobs. Even if they take up jobs, they do it only for the sake of experience. While Indians, very few come back. Isn't there a difference? Because India is not benefiting as much from our students abroad as Chinese are benefiting in their governments.
You have a point, but I disagree with the benefit that India has. It is indirect, but it still has a lot of benefits. See, the Chinese go back because they cannot really have the type of success Indians have here because of the language skills we have, thanks to the British. So basically,
they have rigid control by the government on them, whatever they be doing, right?
No, if they are given money by the government, they are definitely controlled. Otherwise, they can go through the same path. Because when people in Indian origin are waiting in the green card line, there are a lot of people from the Chinese origin are also waiting in the green card line. So those people, they understand if they wait here, waiting for the Chinese numbers to become current, the good years for in their lives will pass. So an Indian who comes here at the age of 25, he's getting his green card through the legal normal means by the time he is 40 years or 45 years of age. So he lost his prime of his life waiting for this. And Chinese figured that out. That's not really worth. So if they go to China, they have much better opportunities to have a better living, to make better prospects for their families. But in India, it is still not there. And that is why people stay here. So if Indian economy is giving them opportunities by reducing the red tape, by making sure that they can start ventures easily, by making sure that the foreign currency transactions are smoother and easier, the number of people will go back, will increase definitely. So these are points that we have to consider. So Chinese, they're encouraging people to come back with their relaxed system. Of course, they don't have the freedom to express whatever they want, but at the same time, they have all the freedom when it comes to businesses, to start businesses and to make it successful. When it comes compared to India's red tape laden system. So that is why more Chinese go back. And that is where Indians have to correct their approach towards returning people.
Well, the most coveted study or profession in the United States used to be medicine. Medicine was the highest earning profession in the US. So that has changed over time. Obamacare and so many things came about. I don't know the details. But it is not as attractive as it used to be, one understands. There are limitations, limits, etc., imposed on them. But on the other hand, technology, like where you are, IT, etc., it has expanded tremendously. And the changes are so fast that only Indians are capable of really dealing with it, the changes in technology. And the Americans recognize that. And so, would you say that Indian students must focus more on IT rather than medicine or engineering? Of course, engineering is part of IT.
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely believe people should follow their passions. But in the Indian system, I know it is still not there. People still follow what is the best job opportunity, what is where they can make more money, what the parents want. All of that still plays a major role. And I can tell you from my experience, my passion is not engineering at all. My passion was public life and politics and all of that, but it has no respect in India at that time. And that is why I went to engineering.
Even now, there isn't much.
No, I hope it changes. We have great leaders, and when you talk about politicians in India,
But some of the leaders will not make you envious. Particularly,
I have no regrets. I have no regrets with the opportunities that I got. But people should follow their passion. That's all I wanted to say. But if you are taking the clue from the industry, from the market, from the parents, from the systems that are in place already, and if you think economic opportunity is the primary thing and relatively easy way of getting there, technology is definitely the way to go.
No, but look at the number of Indians who are heading the biggest corporations in the United States. When I was there, it was mostly doctors. You would say, oh, he's a specialist. So he had tremendous influence in the society. Americans trusted them. You remember the India caucus and all that. We brought it up through doctors. You tell a doctor that then the senator will say, oh, this doctor saved my father, so I will vote for India. That kind of respect they have. But now
the doctors, their field, medicine, is still a very restricted field. So what happened in engineering? If you know the American higher education system, you need to have a 4-year bachelor's degree or more.
Now we are introducing that in India, as you know.
Yeah, so all engineers from India have that 4-year degree, and that is what opened the doors for them when the economic upswing happened during the technology.
Normal degree would not have suited it. Normal 3-year degree would not have helped them.
And that is one reason why you don't see a lot of people with bachelors in physics and chemistry or math not coming, because they only have 3-year degrees. So medicine, it was always a restricted field. Even when you come here, you had to go through this USMLE and all these exams. So by the time you are ready to practice for medicine, you would be about 30 years of age. And I strongly discouraged my children from pursuing medicine because my elder son showed some interest in medicine, but he only decided he will go for engineering school and then kind of decide. And then he decided to stick with engineering when he went to UVA. So what I'm saying is medicine takes forever. And all his classmates who went for medicine, they're still not earning when he is working in high-tech jobs, in high-tech companies for almost 6 years now, 7 years now, making real good money. Whereas people who went for medicine are still, in their residency programs and they're still not earning. So that is a difficulty when you take medicine, and that is one of the reasons why engineering is much more easier once you start having this educational hurdle passed. Once you have the degree in engineering, then once you start a job, there are plenty of jobs out there. For Indians, the green card and all the visa situations will come as a problem, but at the same time, once you pass that, there are lots of jobs, and that is why technology is very important if you're considering American education.
So Indian American children don't go for medicine as much as they used to, is it?
It's still going. There are lots of them going because lots of kids of doctors, they see that that's only profession that they have really been exposed with, and they really like the respect and the money that their parents have, so they get attracted to it. And there is a genuine noble cause and interest to become a doctor. So both my kids, even though I encourage them to go to law and maybe more of a public kind of an education, public life oriented education, they stick with engineering. Maybe because we both were technology folks and doing technology jobs, so that's what they have been watching. So they went with technology, they went with engineering. So most of the doctor kids, that's what I see. There's still a good percentage of them still opting for medicine.
It's still tough to get into medical schools, right?
Medical schools, there are lots of medical schools. So if you don't go to the right medical school, then it will be hard for you to get into a good master's program, good residency program, all of that. So that is why getting into a medical program, a good reputed medical program, is tough. And a lot of kids who take medicine, and it is tough. You have a lot of things to study, and people find it very hard to complete a medical degree. So that is why a lot of them take bachelors and then decide they want to take off for 1 year or 2 year, work somewhere, then try the medical school. And in that time, they decide that it is too much of a hassle to go back to medicine, and they stick with whatever jobs they find after their bachelors. So that is why the difficulty in getting a doctors to practice their profession is definitely a problem when you're considering medicine. It takes forever. And it is not a good thing for Indian American students because their problems are more because it's not easy to sponsor a doctor without having the American certification. Whereas it's so easy for an employer here to sponsor an Indian graduate from an American school compared to an Indian medical graduate coming here. It's very tough for anybody to really sponsor them because they have to go through the J visas and stuff. Whereas all the engineers, they go through the F visas, which is relatively simple and more straightforward.
I see. How about pure academic studies like philosophy or economics or various others leading to Nobel prizes and so on? How attractive are those? Or teaching in the universities?
Absolutely. I would consider those things, those areas of opportunity in America, they are on par or better than anywhere else in the world, I would say. But the encouragement that the government does, government gives to international students, that is much lesser when it comes to those studies because there is no shortage of politicians or professors or artists in America. We have significant shortage of people from technology disciplines, from science, medical doctors, nurses, and in those professions. But we have no shortage in the disciplines that you meant, the humanitarian, the humanity type disciplines. We don't have shortage. The liberal arts type disciplines, we don't have shortage. And so that's why the job prospects are not going to be high. You can get a job, but after all these expenses for your bachelor's or master's education, most of the time, you're not going to get a research assistantship if you're coming here for a master's in philosophy. You're going to be on your own. You're going to support your education. So after spending all that money, if you cannot recoup that money from American system and you had to go back to India, then it's not really worth the effort for a regular Indian guy. But a lot of Saudi students, a lot of Jordanians, a lot of rich Gulf countries, and rich people from everywhere, even Indians, like kids of real big business folks and big politicians. They come here, they take those degrees, they take law degrees. Some of them stay, many of them go back because they come here to get an American degree so that their profile in their home countries go up. So they always come, and a lot of Indians are coming too, because you hear the bulk of the Indians, the lion's share is technology. That's why you don't hear about them. A lot of Indian politicians' sons and daughters come here for such degrees, and Indian businessmen. Their kids, most of them come here for degrees. So that is not new. It is already there, and I think we should encourage them more, because when they come, get more exposure, it is definitely a good thing. I don't know whether you remember, I started this idea of political management in partnership with the Kerala institutions. It didn't go much because I didn't really get much traction in the Kerala scenario with the hurdles that I felt, the UGC approvals and all of that. But that was an idea in that regard. So if you can take good politicians, give them politically oriented good students from undergrad programs, give them good education, good politically oriented education, and if they go back, they can be more quality politicians in India. That was the goal. But it didn't really get much traction. So there is no real money to support such an effort. But whereas in countries like Middle East, countries like Saudi Arabia, there are a lot of students who come with full expenses paid by their home countries to get those degrees. Yes, they exist, and that is a very good avenue for rich Indian students to pursue.
Well, you mentioned nursing. What is the situation now? Was there a ban on Indian nurses in America at some stage?
No, there is no ban. That was going through a separate program, or the nurse sponsorships. It's not H1B. It was a different H1 sponsorship when they had a need for a lot of nurses. So that law has expired. That numbers have expired. Still now they can bring nurses using the H1B category, how technology people are coming. But then you had to go through the hurdles of doing it in advance, and H1B has its own problems because all the.
Do they need to take another degree to be able to practice in America, or Indian nursing?
You had to have the licenses, what licenses that you need for practicing medicine. You need to have the license. So while you come here for license, what visa you will hold during that time? Because you had to be here, you had to go through the training. Otherwise it's very tough. In the training programs exist in India, Kaplan Institute and institutes like that, they offer the training program for CGFNS degrees for nurses. So rich people who can afford, they take the training in India, they come here, or even they write the exams in different centers around the world. They get the licenses, they get all the degrees in place, and then they can get a hospital to sponsor them just using the regular H1 program. But again, the problem is when they need nurses now. They cannot wait, like for the technology people are waiting after filing in October and April, waiting for a visa to be approved in October, and for the guy to show up in the next March or April again. So it's like a 1 year delay. So most of the hospitals, when they want a nurse, they want it reasonably soon. So all these time constraints that H1B situation has, it's not going to work in their favor. So the H1A program, or I don't remember exactly, maybe I'm not correct saying the number correctly, that was much more expedited for nurses when there was a shortage of nurses. But that is not the case anymore. There is not that big a shortage of nurses. And a lot of Malayali children, just like I said, my kids went into engineering. A lot of Malayalis whose parents were nurses, they also opted for nursing as a easier option to get into the medical field, high-paying medical field, compared to becoming doctors. So a lot of international immigrants' children have adopted that profession. Maybe that has helped to reduce the shortage in the nursing sector. Again, I don't have statistics with me right now, but I think
the numbers have they been increasing or reducing of nurses in America?
You mean the number of nurses? Of nurses required? Definitely, it is increasing. But I think there is in-home. In US, there is a lot of focus on nursing now. A lot of kids who never wanted to become nurses in the past, they have changed that because of the salaries,
various attractions,
various attractions. So that has definitely made the supply of more nurses available. But the number of nurses required, that is still, it's still up there. It has not declined.
The tendency in India is many of them to go to the Middle East, including Israel, as we found recently. So
Yeah, that
there
is
are
easy.
movements in other directions like Europe, Germany, Austria. They're all quite attractive for nurses.
Yes, that is easier because they accept our certification as it is. So this is the licensing of American medical system is the toughest thing. So if you talk about dentists, for example, we don't see too many dentists coming from India. And I had a dentist who happened to be connected with me, who came here on a dependent visa. So we found out if you go to one state, Minneapolis, their restrictions are lesser for Indian degree dentists to start practicing, and once they get the license in that state, then they can get license in other states and move on. So it is very restrictive. It's again statewide. All this licensing is statewide. So that is where technology has no such licensing, even though there are some certifications from different brands of technology, but that nobody can really insist because they keep changing on a daily basis. Whereas medical field is much more standardized and permanent, and changes are not happening as frequently as in technology. So technology, the main advantage is as far as you're really good at something, by your proven educational record or professional record, you have a job. You don't have to worry about getting some kind of a national level certified exam or whatever. So again, that is why medical field has more constraints compared to technology field.
Okay, many people who are we are coming to a end of our time, but many of the viewers would be thinking in terms of their own opportunities in the US. So, what would be your advice to somebody who is looking for an undergraduate degree? What is it that they should aim at, and how much scholarships, etc., they can get in terms of financial support? And is it practical for someone who doesn't have too much money to go to the US to study? Are these all possibilities, or they should aim only at a postgraduate position?
I would strongly recommend this. I come from a middle class family, and I consider education is really the groundbreaking thing that happens to middle class citizens who doesn't really have anything else other than their degrees and their education to go to the next levels. So always when I do this type of trainings, I always focus on that spectrum of people because there are so many of them in that band, and there are so many of them that really needs help. So to them, I would say that masters is their preferred way of coming to US because you can get these assistantships and funding so that you can study without really spending from your pocket, and that is the way that you have to think about it. But when it comes to bachelors, definitely opportunities exist for students who can spend from their pocket. Scholarship opportunities are much lesser. So I would suggest the rich in India who can definitely afford. There are, India is a country of 1.2, 1.3 billion people. There are tons of real rich parents who can afford to send their children to, education. They're already doing it. And I believe it is a real good thing if those percentages can go up because they really will learn more from that world exposure they can get. But when it comes to middle class students, which is the bulk of the Indian student population, I would suggest focus more on postgraduate or higher level degrees. And if they like it, if they think they can develop a passion, or if they have a passion for technology, focus in engineering and technology because it makes it very easy for them to transition. They get a job, they can be here permanently, they can get their green cards. All of that becomes easier.
And about the
So
process, is it good to go through agencies? There are so many agencies operating, or is it possible for you to explore these things on your own with all the communications available?
absolutely. I did this when no such communication was available. I went to US consulate in India once in Chennai, and I got some basic information from them and started doing the research and writing mails, regular mails. There was no email at that time to US universities and waiting for their responses. So it was so cumbersome those days. It's much more easier now. You can apply, you can even complete all your applications online, and you can actually start communicating with the professors in advance. And some of my family members, my nephews, I told, and with my recommendation, they started communicating with professors in the University of Nevada, Reno. So that's how they were able to get advance offers. So when they have advance assistantship offer, then your visa from Chennai is a piece of cake because you already have an offer for your finances, how you're going to sponsor your education. So these things are very important. Online is the way to go. Agencies are there to make some money. Definitely, you can go to an agency, some basic training, spending 5,000 or 10,000 rupees to get some basic understanding of what's going on. That I have no problem with. But many of these people who are sitting there helping students, they really don't have the exposure like a person like me. So you should
There are
definitely
many
connect with
people who
someone.
who have been cheated and so on. That is one problem that they
Exactly. A
face.
lot of cheating, and even if no cheating, there are a lot of lack of exposure because my nephews and nieces also, I tried them to find out. Some of them went, some of them didn't. And many of my friends that I'm helping from my engineering college and from other friends of kids of friends that I have coming from India, I give them one-on-one advice from my experience. I connect with one of my nephews or nieces who came, so they start connecting and they start helping. So that networking is the most important, the easiest way. They will know one or two or three in their own personal lives who went to US for higher studies and had success. So they should actually connect with them and get a lot of input from them. And that's the way that you can easily understand and without spending a lot of money, the intricacies and what you should do and how you should work smart, not really spending money. Spending a lot of money, I don't consider working smart. Yes, that also get you where you want to go. But at the same time, with the right network, with the right connections, and I'm ready to help any of your friends if they wanted to get basic advice from me. I'm always ready to help, and I never charge for any of these services. I thought, and many people recommended that I should start some kind of a professional
Consultancy.
service
Right.
doing this,
Okay, that's a
but I
very
never
kind
had
of.
the time.
We'll put your address on our program at the end of the program so that if anybody wishes
Absolutely,
to contact you.
I think
All
that's
right.
the
Thank
best
you,
way
Vincent.
to
Yes,
to go about it.
that is very gracious of you. So thank you very much, Vincent, for spending so much time with me on this tea. Of course, it is only virtual tea, but hopefully one of these days we'll be able to have regular tea either in Washington. Yes, you are already having it.
I actually brought a tea coffee with me because I was thinking that I'm going to have a coffee with.
I have proper teacups here. So, but there is
Yes,
no tea inside us yet because it's rather late for tea today. All right.
yes, I
So
have
thank you
had
very
your
much,
tea.
Vincent. I'm so
Yeah,
happy that you are
thank you, Ambassador.
able to find the time. And see
Yeah,
you
thank you
again
so much
very
for
soon.
having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely,
Bye
thank
bye.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.